It's very simple. We're making deals, and people are paying tariffs. Countries are paying tariffs. Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. But now it's our turn to do the ripping. That's okay. We're going to make our country even stronger than it ever was.
Well, Donald Trump blinked first. It's the biggest U-turn of the century.
We're going to go inside the White House to find out what really prompted the US president to pause those tariffs. And we're going to speak to one of his closest allies, Carla Sands, who will insist that it's all part of the master plan.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And you know what I'm doing, too. That's why you vote for me.
Question today is, Camilla, does he actually know what the hell he is doing after one of the biggest handbrake turns executed from the White House in living memory?
Yes, shall we just see what he subsequently posted on Truth Social? I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Well, my goodness me, doesn't news move fast these days, Kamal? He had set out to make America wealthy again, but instead we've had Donald Trump making America climb down again with the pause on tariffs. He said in that clip that we just used in the introduction that actually it was 104% on China. That Truth Social post made two things clear. First of all, that he was upping the tariff on China to 125%. And secondly, that he was putting a 90-day pause on the rest of the tariffs, making them all reciprocal at 10%, so putting them on a par with Britain and indeed, as we've discussed, the Taliban. I think how this was all played out is really interesting because we've been having this debate between us and indeed Tim Stanley and Ian Duncan Smith and everyone else this week. Is this all the art of the deal? Is it a negotiation? Is it about constantly moving the goalposts to ensure that people then come to Donald Trump on America's terms, honour the notion of America first? Is it all the chicanery that we're kind of used to in the show he used to present, The Apprentice, Cloak and Dagger, politics? Or is this a pure and simple case of Trump doing politics badly, the markets reacting horrendously, and him having to say, hang on a moment, I've made a mistake and I must put a pause on it now?
I think in Trump's head, two contradictory things can be true at the same time. He can believe, he gave that quote 2 days ago where he was asked directly, are these permanent, these tariffs, or can you negotiate? And he said, yes, they're permanent. You can negotiate.
What?
Exactly. So his way of operating is that when the sun comes up, what was true 24 hours earlier may no longer need to be true. When we spoke to Tim Stanley about it, and Tim said he should apologise to Telegraph readers because he said he thought tariffs were a negotiating tactic. Then Trump made it clear, or appeared to make it clear, that they weren't a negotiating tactic, that they were there for good, because this was the way, in his mind, to protect the US economy. And I said to Tim, I'm not sure you need to apologise, because I said in 2 weeks' time, let's invite you back to the Daily Tea studio, because he will have done something which completely changes the idea of permanency. And Tim said, oh, yes, maybe. And of course, he hasn't done it in 2 weeks' time. He's done it in 48 hours. Now, what has forced his hand is the way that the markets have responded. Michael Wolff said that Donald Trump is a person who is resistant to knowledge. Margaret Thatcher famously said, you cannot buck the markets. It doesn't matter what the Democrats say. It doesn't matter what Keir Starmer says. It doesn't matter what his allies say. In the end, two things really matter for the economic health of America. The stock market, which is basically a bet on how profitable businesses are going to be in the future, and they collapse when investors believe that those businesses will become less profitable, as they did around tariffs. And the second one is the bond market. James Carville, the former special advisor to Bill Clinton, famously said, "If I am ever reincarnated, I don't want to come back as a king or an emperor or the Pope. I want to come back as a bond vigilante, because nobody can defeat the bond market." The bond market is what supports America's debts. It's a hugely indebted country, and those debts are going up every single day by billions of dollars. As soon as investors start saying, "I'm not sure we want to support that debt any longer," then the cost of that borrowing goes up and up. We had a slight flick of it with Rachel Reeves. You'll remember after the budget and in the new year, our borrowing cost spiked.
Went beyond Liz Truss levels.
Yes, threatened her fiscal rules, and she had to reimagine what the UK economy might look like. Donald Trump had bond yields at 5%. They were levels that hadn't been seen for decades for America. America simply can't afford it. You can be the biggest economic elephant in the world, which America is, but in the end, the bond markets are the markets that say you will only go so far. So this has not been a political decision. It has been forced on him by economics.
Let's analyse the timeline of him being forced into this position, because it is interesting. And it also then engenders a discussion about whether he shows strength in changing his mind or whether blinking first actually makes him look very weak. I suspect it's probably the latter. But we have a moment on Monday where it's rumoured that there might be a 90-day pause. The White House denies it, but we do see the markets sort of rallying. So if that was a kind of pitch rolling exercise for what might happen if we announce a 90-day pause, it was a successful one. The graphs show a lovely peak, and then, of course, when the White House issues the denial, they go down. So we have this kind of dress rehearsal on Monday. Then there's an actual dressy event on Tuesday night in Washington. The president is there at an event, suited and booted. He's in a black tie, I believe. And that's when he makes this protestation. And we heard a bit of it at the beginning of the podcast, but it was really quite sneering. It was saying, you know, I'm in charge of the world and I've got people sucking up to me. Let's listen to that.
And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, you know, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir.
Okay, so, you know, lots of people are finding that quite funny. I'm not sure whether that sounds a bit like a bully boy, doesn't he? But
he sounds a bit, Camilla, there, like with the Zelensky issue.
Yeah.
It's fine to be funny and to be different and to be, you know, a bit on the edge. But people really, we've seen a bit of this amongst our Telegraph readership and also amongst you, our listeners. People don't like someone being a bully and an oik.
No, or just arrogant, you know. Anyway, so that's the Tuesday night. Then at around 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning, Washington time, we get a post on Truth Social. Be cool, he says. Shall I do my accent again?
I think you should, yeah.
Everything's going to work out well. The USA will be bigger and better than ever before. Okay, exclamation mark. Sounds good, doesn't it, Kamal?
I'm not allowed to read any of these out because my Trump impression is so bad.
Do you want
that
to
the
try
producers,
the next
no,
one?
No. The producers have said you're not doing that anymore. So, Camilla, you're going to have to continue.
To be
sorry.
fair, we need Tim Stanley, who's the best
we do.
impersonator of us all.
Although Venetia Rainey is very good, actually. But anyway,
she is our planning producer. Then, about 6 minutes later, he adds this. This is all capped up. This is a great time to buy.
He sounds like Donald Trump when he's got quite a heavy cold, but yes, let's hope. Anyway,
no,
that's fine. No, let's keep working with it.
This is a great time to buy. I can't get the buy right. Anyway, the only thing I can say well is China, as you know, but everyone can do that. So that's in the morning on Wednesday. And then the bombshell hits. 1:18 p.m. US time. We get the Truth Social post. I'm putting up the tariff on China to 125%. I'll take your raised tariff and I'll raise it further, ever the card player, and says, and actually, just in this latter half of that post, we're going to put on a 90-day pause. What do we think persuaded him between Tuesday night and Wednesday afternoon? Well, we've got a bit of an impression, haven't we?
So, regularly, the US government has to go to the market to borrow money. And all these countries where these huge tariffs had been slapped on, particularly the big US creditors, that's Japan and China. Those are the two biggest creditors in the USA and in the debt. They support the debt. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, of course, now Prime Minister of Canada, he once said, the problem for countries trying to engage in battles with the rest of the world over economics is that you have to remember you rely on the support of strangers. They can make any decision they want. And there was a sense in the markets on that Tuesday, and it was actually a time when Bill Ackman, one of the biggest Trump supporters, he's the head of a big hedge fund called Pershing, he first said there should be a 90-day pause. He first put in the kind of public domain this idea of the 90-day pause. There was a wobble in the markets on that day when suddenly the yields started going up. The amount that America needed to pay to borrow started going up. And that is the opposite of what should be happening in a crisis situation, because America should be seen as a safe haven. So people should invest in America because it's a safe haven. But that wasn't happening. And as soon as that starts, whether Donald Trump thinks this is all part of his master plan or not, it sort of doesn't matter, because you can't outrun the bond markets. It's simply not possible.
So inside the White House, we've got this kind of war being waged between pro-tariffers and anti-tariffers. On the anti-tariff side is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Tesla owner Elon Musk. Shares in his company have fallen by 50% since Trump took power, arguing against tariffs. What did he say about Navarro?
So Peter Navarro is the massive China hawk that we mentioned the day before yesterday in our podcast. And Elon Musk described Navarro as stupid as a bag of bricks. And then Navarro said that Elon Musk was a moron and said he was somebody who just simply bolted cars together
yes,
on assembly
that's right.
lines.
He was a car assembler. It's mature stuff, this, isn't it? So behind the scenes, one can imagine this situation of all these different advisors trying to have.
And Navarro,
Trump's ears.
just to remind everyone, he is the special counsel to Donald Trump, as he was in Donald Trump's first term as well.
So let's listen to Bessent, again, that's the Treasury Secretary, explain this. He's immediately wheeled out in front of the White House to face reporters, answering questions along the lines of, what on earth is going on here?
President's decision.
It's president's decision. It was the president's decision to wait until today. And again, as I've said in the past, no one creates leverage for himself like President Trump.
So Scott Bessent, who is actually seen by the markets, by banking leaders as a relatively serious player in the Trump team. It wasn't just the likes of Bill Ackman, who run lots of money all across the world, that was starting to put the pressure on. Larry Fink, he is the chief executive of BlackRock, a huge global investor, had also warned about the risk of recession for America. And then Jamie Dimon. Now, Jamie Dimon is the chief executive of JP Morgan, one of America's biggest banks. The thing about Jamie Dimon, which is really important, is that he is, I think still, of the biggest American banks, the longest serving chief executive. He had guided that bank through the financial crisis. He is seen as one of those weather vane commentators in America. And he's someone who Trump would see as someone worth listening to, because Dimon is he's no sort of, he's not like Mark Carney or something, which is sort of liberal and he's got all these arguments. He's a hard-nosed, hard-arsed profit and loss guy. What does Trump understand? Profit and loss accounting. And Jamie Dimon went on Fox Business earlier this week.
Probably on purpose, by the way. He wants Trump to see this, right?
So he had tweeted a little bit, I think, about some of the risk, and he said it more quietly. Then Bill Ackman opens the window slightly to this idea that the markets are not liking this. Larry Fink. And then Jamie Dimon goes on Fox Business, and as you say, Camilla, we know that Donald Trump, when he's not posting on Truth Social, is often watching Fox. And this was Jamie Dimon on Fox.
But how significant would you expect that? Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
Because markets, I mean, when you see a 2,000 point decline, it sort of feeds on itself, doesn't it?
And I think that at that point, Camilla, I think Trump is sort of, you can almost imagine the scene, is sitting in the room. he has his trusted advisor, Kevin Hassett. He's chairman of the National Economic Council. He backed this sort of Besant-Musk axis that is being supported by some of the biggest voices. And Trump can see he's losing the markets and the economy. And also, Camilla, really important, he's starting to lose the voters.
Yes.
He's got his MAGA supporters who are up at this incredible 80 to 85% support of in approval for Trump. But the more general voters are showing they are slipping away, and they don't like this sense of, firstly, chaos, but secondly, and we've touched on this before, their savings. There are 160 million investors in America with small savings, and they have what are called 401ks, which are savings accounts like a pension account, which are often at least semi-invested in equities, in stocks and shares, and those are starting to collapse. So you're getting the people who are Trump's base, retired metal workers from Detroit, or you're getting insurance salesmen from Ohio, or farmers. They've got these 401ks, and if you read a lot of the local papers from all over the country, endless interviews with 70-year-old guys saying, I'm really scared.
I'm worried my pension's going to
so
be
you
wiped
lose
out.
the economy, you lose voters, and just the same as Liz Truss, it doesn't matter whether you're Donald Trump, Liz Truss, or anybody, you can't push against that.
No, also I think kind of the spectre of recession, or I was hearing as well in the week, people talking about, could we have another Wall Street crash? Is there going to be a Great Depression? Could this be on a par with the aftermath of 9/11 or the global financial crisis? I think if you talk in those terms, not least because COVID is so fresh in the memory when it comes to people's stocks and shares and pensions and how much of a hammering they took, people were understandably getting very, very jittery. And even Trump himself admitted, he must have been seeing the markets, because he admitted, hang on a minute, people are feeling like it's a little bit like squeaky bum time here.
Yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. Cut the bow and you have to do what you have to do, right, Roger?
90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions.
But this is what is so remarkable about Trump, Kamal. How does he then spin the climb down? So he then goes back on Truth Social. He uses a clip of Besant saying to the White House, don't you worry, Trump's got this. This is all part of the strategy. He then accompanies that with a graph showing the stock market shooting back up, and he captions it, "The successful negotiating strategy Trump implemented." With great humility, I think you'll agree. Honestly. And at the end of the day, before he goes to bed, after he's had his Big Macs and he climbs into his little sleeping bag, which I always imagine to be full of Cheetos. I'm not sure if that's the case. That's probably why he emerges orange every morning. He posts at the end of the day, "What a day, but more great days are coming." There is reason to be cheerful, is there not, Kamal?
He certainly has the chutzpah, and in a way, you've got to admire him for it. But it seems to me that there was a degree of panican within the White House and for the Trump. Remember
that
word?
Mean? What's the definition?
It's someone who's a member of a party
Yes.
that is built on panicking about everything.
Panicking and weakness.
The Panican party, yes,
Yes,
which is probably wet liberals.
the
presumably.
Panican, that may as well be used for the entire world with any investments, but go on.
Although we might think with one leap we are free, I think we should remember, first of all, he has put 10% tariffs on all trade around the world. Second point, he has still got 25% tariffs on steel, aluminium, and cars.
Yes.
Third thing, he has put up a huge trade wall with the other biggest economic powerhouse in the world, China. So
Yes.
although we saw this amazing spike, as you say, in the American markets last night, in the Asian markets this morning, today actually they've softened very quickly because net it is still negative. The stock market has only gone back to where it was on April the 3rd. So it's not as if everyone said, okay, that's great, we can all move on, because there is still this huge border tax implications of Trump's, even the ones he's left on the table, the tariffs he's left on the table. There's a big signal here, which he still hasn't reversed. And I think the yields, the cost of American borrowing will still remain high is that people, and this is market language, feel they are overweight America. They've invested too much in that country. And so we have still seen the dollar weakening. And that is a signal that people are pulling capital away from America and looking to invest elsewhere.
Can they bring it here, please?
Well, I just wanted to get
Labour
into
has to do. How do we
Yes.
respond?
free market, Camilla, which is sadly not the direction of travel, which is, we've talked about. But also the other thing is,
just when you needed
doesn't
to
it
have
show,
a Tory government.
Was a conservative government free market, to be
know.
honest? I don't think anyone's been free market really aggressively since, frankly, Margaret Thatcher and possibly with a little bit of Tony Blair. But anyway, we've discussed that many times, Camilla. The issue for Keir Starmer is, the reporting is that Japan have actually been given trade negotiators to negotiate with in America. Has Britain actually got that? We know that John Healey, the business secretary, has been over there. Are we really front of the queue when it comes to this idea of a free trade deal? Because what has happened now, there was an idea, this could be quite good for Keir Starmer because we are in a slightly better position, for example, than the EU.
Yeah, now we're just like everyone else.
Vietnam or other countries around the world. But actually now we've lost our
advantage.
We are now in exactly the same position as the EU, which is a much bigger set of economies than we are. And we're in the same position as Japan. And as I say, Japan has $1 trillion worth of investment in US government debt. China is second on about 750 billion. The UK is a big investor in America and does support a lot of the American debt, but we don't quite appear to be in as positive a situation. If you imagine the race, Camilla, I feel the UK sort of fallen back to about sort of 7th, 8th place. Yeah. And who's playing a blinder is Japan.
Yes.
They just let it be known in the markets, we're not that keen on American debt, actually.
No.
And suddenly everyone's going, golly,
hang on.
If Japan take that decision, we're in real problems.
I had a go at Ramonas in a column, and I was going below the line to speak to people, and lots of Ramonas were saying, well, where's your Brexit dividend now? And I was trying to make the point, we still got the preferential treatment because of Brexit. Can we not be denialist about it? It wasn't because of Keir Starmer's superior negotiating skills or because the Trump camp was just so enamoured with Labour, certainly following David Lammy and Sadiq Khan's comments about Trump previously, for goodness sake. But no, we don't seem to be in pole position anymore. Although Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, was being quite coquettish about the idea of having this secret trade deal sort of ready, oven ready. Is there a deal oven ready? I don't know.
He doesn't quite have that sort of Hollywood elan, Jonathan Reynolds. No. You don't imagine him walking into the White House and everyone goes, hey, Johnny Reynolds has arrived. It's not quite slams down his thing. Let's have a little bit about your thoughts on what we've experienced over the past 24 hours.
Mixed feelings
for all of us. John Parkin says, Trump creates a problem and then takes credit for solving it.
Yes.
No mind that he damages everybody at a whim based on an analysis of tariffs placed on the US.
Robin Tuberfield says, not sure if this is the markets using their power to stop things or Trump playing them. If it's the markets, then it's a sad state of affairs. I mean, he raises this point about the markets don't like uncertainty, and I appreciate that chaotic Trump doesn't really play very well. But at the same time, there was certainty, wasn't there? There was certainty that he was slapping very clear, numerically spelt out tariffs on different countries, and still the markets went mad. So the markets just go mad because Trump's mad, I think.
It's not mad. It's very rational to reprice how much profit will a business make if we have these new huge taxes.
Yes.
It's not actually chaotic at all. It's the
but
laws.
Are the markets against ambitious politicians, I suppose, is the point that Robin's trying to make.
Then also,
just using the Trump analogy.
Yes, and also
and
Liz Truss.
Liz
Truss has said very, very similar. I totally disagree with that point of view. What markets do is they try and price debt, i.e. what we lend governments and businesses. And anyone looking at tariffs would say, whatever you're trying to get to, stop the hollowing out of America, stop the hollowing out of Western economies, for a pretty lengthy period, recession risk has increased and businesses will make less profit. So we're just going to bring the price down. That's all a market is doing. A market is just a market is just pricing the opportunity to make profit. Where it does spin out of control, where the Liz Trusses of this world do have stronger arguments, is that things then become automatic, because as soon as the market starts falling, people have to then call in their investments because they have to keep a balanced portfolio. You can't have too much risk in your system, downside risk. So then you have to start, it's called a margin call. You have to then start pulling out stocks because of the computer systems that maintain your balanced portfolio. That then becomes what's called a doom loop, and you start getting this spinning cycle.
Yeah, we need to wait and see whether a 90-day pause is a 90-day pause or a permanent one. I tell you one person that isn't benefited by this, and that's the Chancellor. Rachel Reeves can no longer blame Donald Trump for our own economic woes if the world hasn't changed quite as much as it had done before he paused the tariff. So that's a tricky one.
Well, Carla Sands joins us. She is the Vice Chair of the Center for Energy and Environment, part of the America First Policy Institute. Formerly, she was on Donald Trump's Economic Advisory Council and served as U.S. Ambassador to Denmark from 2017 to 2021. She's also a businesswoman and is presently the Chair and CEO of Vintage Capital Group and Vintage Real Estate. Carla, thank you so much for joining the Daily Tea.
Thank you very much, Kamal and Camilla.
Carla, kick us off. We assume, Camilla and myself, that you will say this was all part of a master plan and is not a U-turn. Is that approximately where you are?
Are you talking about the 90-day pause on the massive tariffs on many of our trading partners that have been treating us unfairly over the decades?
That's it.
Well, I think that they look at the situation as it is and they respond. In today's world, as fast as things move, you have to be nimble. I think the days, and I understand the 100-year plan, like having an energy plan that's good for a country for 100 years. But I also understand in the day-to-day world, the more nimble you are, the more you're able to respond to the facts on the ground. I think the more successful you can be whether it's a company or a country.
But Carla, wasn't Donald Trump really reacting to a market's meltdown rather than being politically nimble?
He may have been. He has these steady pair of hands with him on all of these issues that I really trust. Treasury Scott Bessent, and then the economic advisor, Kevin Hassett. Both men are men that are very steady. They're measured in their approaches, but also they have big brains. They're able to look at situations and make really good assessments. And so with his great advisors at his side, I think he probably made the best decision in all of their estimation. I'm sure there was debate. I mean, debate is healthy. You want to hear from different points of view. I mean, I thought he would hold out. I thought he would hold steady and actually pull everyone in to make, but is there a bandwidth to actually get 70 or 75 countries trade deals done immediately? So after I absorbed the news, I thought, well, this is really smart, because what it does is it gives everybody room to get all of those details done, because he wants these bilateral trade deals. He doesn't want to do, I think the days of multilateralism are over. And this is a great signal of that. And so it takes time to do all this. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to land in a better place globally for the US, but also for our trading partners.
Do you think this has been damaging for Donald Trump's support in America? When you've got some of his biggest supporters in finance, like Bill Ackman, like Larry Fink, not one of his supporters, but Jamie Dimon, raising the significant concerns from the people who control so much of our money all around the world. That must be damaging for Donald Trump, saying that he stands up for America, but some of the leading American financiers are saying these policies that he put in place would not work for the American economy.
When I look at the decision making of this administration and who President Trump ran for as president to represent, he ran to represent all Americans, but he especially talked to the forgotten man and woman. And those are the people from the small towns, some big cities as well, but many small towns throughout the United States who had been forgotten and whose towns had been maybe 30,000 people and were now 5,000 people because the population collapsed when the factory closed and the jobs and production moved overseas. And this happened it happened during my lifetime. So I watched it happen. And I watched thriving, prosperous towns become full of people that looked out of their eyes with blank stares, that looked like they were on drugs and alcohol. Families broke up. The main streets emptied. I get chills talking about it. The newspapers would kind of blow around the towns. You wouldn't see the foot traffic. It went from happy families to really devastation. That's the story of Main Street in America over the last 40 years. But those are the people that he ran to represent and that he cares about, because Wall Street has done incredibly well. The rich have gotten so much richer than they were 40 years ago, and all of them have benefited. If you look at where the wealth has transferred, it's gone to the very wealthy.
But Carla, considering the circumstances that you've just spelled out, are you confident that Rust Belt America can rise to the challenge of reindustrialization? How quickly can this project be executed? Because, of course, Trump's on limited time. You know, he's got the midterms fast approaching, which seems unbelievable. He's only been in office for a few months. And this is his final term as US president.
It's true. Hopefully there will be another Republican succeed him so that the legacy can continue and these towns can be rebuilt, because it's true. It's limited time. That's why he's moving so very quickly, why you see it looks like years happening in weeks, and why I think that politics in America has become so fascinating. But I think that it's possible. He started those economic opportunity zones in his first administration. He's doing executive orders to unleash opportunity, removing permitting requirements, all of these. The permitting regulation was really in place to do denial by delay. It was stopping projects. We had become like Italy. You remember, like if you try to build something in Italy, it takes a really long time. There's the permits and there's this and there's that. America didn't used to be like that. But the left, and sometimes the right, have stepped in to make overregulation. And I think that it's possible. If you look at his executive orders yesterday, he unleashed American shipbuilding. We have fallen to lows where China dominates in world shipbuilding. You have to be able to make ships to be a great power. So he's recognizing our shortcomings and he's unleashing. He's going to have federal dollars in place for it. He's going to remove all of the sort of the hurdles that companies would have to overcome that would take years. And now things will move in months, not years, is what will happen. It's going to be a revitalization of our industrial areas, car manufacturing, the parts, because people are not going to want to pay these high tariffs. They're going to have to very quickly onshore. We're going to have to make our rare earth minerals and process them here using high environmental standards. We're going to have to make steel and aluminum. You have to do it to be a great power. So all of these things. Remember, during this Ukraine war, Russia has actually been producing more ammunition than the EU and US combined. Russia. So it's outrageous that we have all, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and using the peace dividend, we've let everything kind of collapse. And this is the Western world. So you're in the UK, the EU, we all have to wake up. We have to reindustrialize. If we are service economies, we will not be able to defend ourselves. We will not be great, wealthy powers. It's just not possible. You have to be able to do both.
Does the president think that the chaos on the markets, the chaos in economies around the world, the threats that many people have seen Donald Trump making to other economies are a price worth paying?
You know, I kind of think after watching him for the first years of, the first 4 years of his prior administration, he seems to succeed partially because of the chaos that he creates, because it throws an additional kind of element into negotiations. When you're dealing, for instance, with the Chinese Communist Party in negotiations or in the kind of asymmetrical war that we are all in with them, they're using a gray zone kind of war with every lever at their hand except invasion. If you think about the propaganda, the bribery, the theft that they do, the coercion of European, British, or US businesses to operate there, the inequities where you can't buy property there, but they can buy property in our countries. If you look at all of that, there have been studies that show that China will win unless there are unusual powers at hand. And President Trump's chaotic, unpredictable method of negotiating is the only thing that can overcome a very powerful, intentional Chinese Communist Party. And that is the main adversary for us all.